Yeah, as we speak right now, your class is being recorded. Purposely is because some people are very naughty. They might say that class was not conducted. Others might also say that the lecturer was not there. And also the reason as to why we record classes is specifically for those people who are not there, so that they can go through the recording and listen to those recordings. And more importantly, is maybe you want some clarification on a point that was said or on an example that was given and you want to get it right. So in other words, we do record our classes and we share the link. I believe that to some of us, this is our first class. I also believe that to some of us, I believe that to some of us, this is our first class because of the confusion that was there last week. But last week we had a class. Last week we had a class and we learned. And last week we were looking at introduction to public relations. And when we looked at public relations, allow me to do some introduction, to do a recap. We said that public relation is like the air that we breathe in, and a public relations officer is the eyes and the ears of the organization, or specifically we said that he is the radar of the organization, that he sees on behalf of the organization, listens on behalf of the organization, then counsels organizational leaders so that it benefits both the public and the organization. So in other words, we also looked at three definitions by by various scholars, although there are myriad of definitions from so many scholars. Like we have Catlip, who has defined public relations. We have Sam Black, who has defined public relations. We have Philip Hensloy, who have defined public relations. We have Frank Jeffkins and Daniel Yadin, who have defined public relations. We have Philip J. Kitchen, who has defined public relations. And we have others like Weintraub and Pinkleton, who have defined PR. Now today, so I didn't want to go into all those scholars that have defined public relations among many, but we looked at public relations defined by Frank Jeffkins and also the Mexican statement and also the Mexican statement and the British Institute of Public Relations. And one thing that I remember touching on it and giving example is the Mexican statement, where we said that public relations is an art as well as a science of analyzing trends, predicting their consequences, counseling organizational leadership, and coming up with planned program of actions that will benefit both the public and its both the organization and its publics. And we said that publics are people that are involved in an organization either directly or indirectly. I remember very well again, we said that publics, Frank Jeffkins and Daniel Yadin have defined publics or have classified publics into various categories. And I remember myself mentioning community, the media, the potential employees, the employees, we have the retailers, the shareholders, the stakeholders, what we call opinion leaders, politicians, government, all those. We have publics of public relations. And these publics of public relations are a group of people that interact with an organization either directly or indirectly. Then from there, we looked at models of public relations, and we said that these are modes in which public relation is uses to communicate. Like we looked at two-way symmetric method, we looked at two-way asymmetric method, we look at press agentry, we also looked at others. That is what we looked at. Then we looked at the PR activities. PR activities, where we talked about things like, for example, we talked about things like lobbying. We talked about things like development. We talked about things like crisis issues management. We also looked at things like advertising and so on and so forth. Then from there, I told you to read on images, whereby we have current image, corporate image, multiple image, wish image, those things I told you to read on yourself. And then we looked at qualities of a good public relations. And then from there, I told you to read on PR consultancy, that is internal public relations, and also external public relations. So that is a summary of what we did last week for those who missed. And if you missed, there is a link of a recording that is there. Kindly go and listen to it. You're going to get at par with the rest of us. And I realized that the DHM, they were the only one who are in this class. The DCMS, majority of you are not in this class. The DTM, you are not in this class, but luckily we were able to solve the issue with the HOD and the relevant offices, and now your issue is solved. Now, apart from that, today we are going to look at a topic, and this topic, let me share my screen. This topic is known as issues management. Issues management, known as issues management. Now, if you were here last week, we talked about activities of PR, activities of PR. And one of the activities of PR is issues management. One of the activities of public relations is issues management. I hope you are writing wherever you are. Hope you are writing. You are not listening as though you are listening to DJ Demakufu. Because that is the only time you don't write. You only listen and you shake your head, depending on vile imeshika. Now today, allow me to start my class, and we are going to look at issues management. Now, when you talk about an issue is simply a point of conflict between two or more individuals. It's a point of conflict between two or more individuals. If you don't deal with an issue, it becomes a crisis. A very good example in Kenya is what we call cattle hustling, or cattle hustling. You remember the Pokot and the Marakwet. That was an issue. It was a very big issue. And the issue was these two communities, they were fighting for greener pastures or green pastures. When you talk about greener pastures, this does not mean that going abroad or looking for a job or something of the sort. What I mean is they were looking for, maybe it's just a food for their what? For their animals. And these people, they are, let's just say that they are neighbors, because one community will graze and it would go to the borders of the other community and do what we call extend to the borders. So the other community will steal their animals and so on and so forth. So there was an issue, and this issue was not solved. And because this issue was not solved, it came to a point where there was a crisis. And the crisis is this one. They started stealing one another's animals. The Pokot are stealing the Marakwet's animals. The Marakwets, they are stealing the Pokot's animal, and so on and so forth. Before we realized, they started shooting one another, killing one another, burning people's houses, and so on and so forth. So an issue is a point of conflict between two or more individuals, and if you don't solve an issue, it becomes a crisis. So an issue needs to be solved. It's just like in Kiswahili ambapo tunasema usipoziba ufa utajenga ukuta. Ufa ni a small crack. If you cannot deal with if you cannot deal with a small crack on the wall, then finally you might end up building a whole wall or the whole wall. So that is it. So issue management is dealing with issues. And we have so many issues in an organization. For example, in an organization, employees might be asking for better sanitation, good toilets, clean water, good working environment, better pay, and it is complaining to the relevant authorities, to the management. The management is not ready to listen to them. These people have been complaining year in, year out. Now they are tired. Now the one day they wake up and they go on strike, carrying placards along Thika Superhighway, along major roads in Nairobi, like for example, Mombasa Road, along city center, saying that they are being, writing all manners of things in their placards. Now, what is that? It has now become a crisis. What kind of a crisis? Remember, you as an organization, because you never did what we call, because you never listened to their issues, because you never dealt with their issues, now it has become a crisis. And this kind of a crisis tarnishes the image of the organization. The organization's image becomes tarnished. People will start to say, that big organization, employees went on strike. Why? Because of poor pay, because of poor, bad sanitation, because of what else? Because of being mistreated, and also being what? Being mistreated, being abused, all those things. And how it looks serious. You see, now you have tarnished your image because you never dealt with the issue. Another thing is, maybe for example, you have had, say for example, things like accidents, fire accidents, or fire outbreaks. For example, you're a big organization. I don't want to mention any organization in Kenya, but assume that you're a big organization. And all of a sudden, there is fire outbreak. Employees' property, organization's property, destroyed completely to ashes. And you're a big organization, a very renowned organization. What does that tell you? It tells you that there was an issue. And the issue was, train your employees on how to deal with fire crisis. Train your employees on how to deal with issues of the sort. Again, do what else? Employ or get in touch with the fire brigade and people who deal with training, and make sure that you have all the components like fire extinguisher at the right place, everything that can fight a fire, be it wood, fire from the wood and papers, be it fire from what we call oils and so on and so forth. Those are issues that you never dealt with as an organization, because if you had dealt with them, this fire would not have destroyed the property worth billions or millions or hundreds and thousands of shillings. That is it. So in other words, issue is a point of conflict between an individual and the other, or between two or more individuals. And this one happens. And the moment a big organization has been, is suffering from, or there is a very big fire outbreak, it simply means that you don't know how to fight with fire. It simply means that you cannot deal with such crises. The first people to get there whenever there is a fire outbreak or whenever there is a crisis, these are the media people. These are the media people with their cameras, with their reporters. They are the first people to get there. So then we start by asking ourselves, then what is issues management? Issues management, number one, you identify. It's identifying. Number two, analyzing. Number three, developing positions and briefing management on public issues or public policy issues that will have a critical effect on the company. For example, before a strike takes on, or before a strike has been arranged, or before people goes on strike, the employer usually knows. Ati tumekuwa tukikwambia fanya hivi. Employees are not happy. You have not increased their salary for the past 10 years. But wewe unasema wacha, mwenye anataka kwenda wacha aende, mwenye anataka kubaki wacha abaki. As an employer, you can even sit with them down, tell them the situation of the company. These are people they will understand, but you have just decided to give them a deaf ear. And then one day they plan a strike. And maybe as an employer, unasema hakuna mahali wataenda, nothing will happen. These people, they cannot plan a strike. This is a big organization, nobody will trust them. And the following day, boom, all of them are on the streets at the city center, not even close to the organization, at the city center, carrying very big placards, carrying effigies of the employer, burning effigies, striking, making noise. And then before you notice, the government is there. The labor laws are on your office. No, the labor officers are on your office. What else? The government is there. The media is there. Look now, it has become what? A crisis. What will you tell the labor office? What will you tell the media? What will you tell the government? Those are the kind of things. And again, apart from that, you have tarnished your image that you have taken so long to build. An image, you can take it as much as 100 years to build, but it only takes a single or very few minutes to destroy the image of the company. That is it. So issues have to be managed. So as a public relations officer, remember the definitions by the Mexican statement that we say that it is an art and science of, number one, analyze a trend. There is a looming strike somewhere. People are complaining, analyze that trend, predict their consequences. If we don't deal with this, people are going to do what? To strike, and we are going to tarnish they are going to tarnish the image of the organization. Now you are analyzing the trends, you are predicting their consequences. Then after predicting their consequences, look for the management, the big people in the organization, the CEOs, the owner of the organization, the proprietor. Sit down with them, cancel them, tell them this is not good, do something about this thing. If you don't do this, this is likely to happen. After canceling them, come up with a planned program of action. How are you going to deal with such an issue? Then after coming up with planned program of action, of course, it is going to benefit you, the organization, and the public. So that is the work of a PR practitioner. So there are steps that are involved in what we call issues management, unless there is a question up to that point. Any question? Do you have any question up to that point? So there is no question. So we can start by looking at the stages in issues management. Number one, you are told you need to create your own list of issues. Every organization, we cannot say that an organization is 100% perfect. Just like a human being, like in business, those who are doing business, an organization is considered as a person. An organization is considered as a person. Just like you as a person, you are not 100% perfect. The same case with an organization. You can never find an organization that is 100% perfect. So therefore, we are saying the stages involved, number one, is you create your own list of issues that appear to be on the move. So you come as a PR practitioner, you list down the issues that are in an organization. For example, it is about fire. The employees have not been trained on how to fight fire in case of fire outbreak. Maybe an issue is all about salaries. The employees have not been they are being paid peanuts since maybe 20 years ago. Nobody has ever been added a salary. Maybe it is all about sanitation. Maybe it is all about what we call the employees are not treated right. You are overworking the employees. Maybe you're telling them to report to work at 5 a.m. and to leave the work at 8 p.m. That is overworking. So now you will have the labor laws to contend with, the labor office to contend with, because the government of Kenya labor laws stipulates that people should work for 8 hours. So if you're reporting there at 8, by 5 unafaa kuwa umetoka hiyo kazi for at least 8 hours in a day. Your employees are working for 14 hours or 12 hours. That is against the labor laws. So those are issues that you will come up with. I'm just giving an example. Then after coming up with issues, find them by being in touch or by asking around and by consulting. You consult the relevant office. If it's about payment or salaries, go and ask the HR office. If it's about sanitation, ask the HR office. If it's all about, say, for example, issues to do with the machines and the equipment they are using, you ask maybe the procurement, such things. Then number 2, you are told assign priorities to the list according to time scale and likelihood of the issue moving. So in other words, you are being told, of all the issues that you have listed down, give priority. Which one will come first? Which one will come last? For example, issues to do with safety, that one, give it priority. Issues to do with fire safety, issues to do with just safety, give them the priorities. Then you can just decide issues to do with, say, for example, payment or salaries, let's give it the second priority. And like that, you have your issues, prioritize them according to their order of importance. Then from there, you validate your time scale with external sources you trust. You come with the external sources or the people. External sources are people that will give you what? The services that you need. For example, if you're talking about fire crisis, these people need to be trained about how to act in case of a fire, or how to use fire extinguishing machines or equipment. So you validate your time scale with an external source. Then from there, you set priorities according to the likely significance and the impact on your organization. Say, for example, issues to do with fire is you find that it is very serious. Set priorities, just like point number 2. Then validate these priorities. Validating the priorities is now sit down, check, tick. This one you say now, you check down, go sit down alone and try to check on these priorities. Then after that, discuss and validate your approach. And then finally, though you're going to go through all those processes, finally establish which corporate colleague is going to become responsible for the issue. For example, if you're talking about fire, you see, as a PR practitioner, you cannot deal with all the issues. You cannot deal with fire. You are dealing with employees payment. You are dealing with maybe, for example, issues to do with sanitation. You're dealing with things to do with equipment. Maybe the equipment that the employees are using are obsolete. No. So therefore, to make sure that things are running smoothly, assign them to various colleagues. Say, for example, issues to do with equipment and procurement. I'm going to give, maybe, for example, I'm going to give Michelle Atamba. The issues to do with fire, I'm going to give Mbuvi Nduva. Issues to do with, maybe, for example, like that, because you cannot do everything as a person. And again, you will need a report, and these people that you have elected to deal with such issues will be giving you report on the progress of everything. Then from there, we move on to crisis management. Crisis management. And when you talk about crisis management, that we are told that every year, companies invest large amounts of money. Companies invest a large amount of money and execute time in developing and maintaining their corporate reputation. Reputation is very important, by the way. Today, I was teaching some diploma students on reputation. I was teaching them on defamation and reputation. And the Constitution of Kenya simply says that a person's reputation is his property. And in fact, the most expensive property. So you cannot just play around with the reputation of a company, because many companies have been there for more than 20 years trying to build a reputation. Think of a company like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has been there ever since. When I was born, Coca-Cola was there. You were born just the other day, the Coca-Cola is still there. When my parents were born, Coca-Cola was still there. So it has been there for quite some time. So it is an international brand, and many other brands. So it has taken years and years and years and years to build a reputation. Now imagine something happens to Coca-Cola right now. Imagine it happens. It is going to tarnish the image of the Coca-Cola, and it's going to people are going to refrain from buying products that are associated with the company. So in other words, crisis management. Companies are investing a lot of money trying to do what? Trying to maintain their reputation, and also trying to maintain their reputation and those of their products and services. So few companies, however, have in place procedures and personnel who protect their reputation or those reputation when crisis occurs. So when a crisis occurs, just like we said, number one, when you're talking about issues, that you delegate the duties as a PR practitioner. That Michelle Atamba is going to deal with fire issues. Maybe Mercy Maina is going to deal with what we call issues to do with payment and salary increment. And maybe another person will deal with what we call issues to do with proper working environment, because all these things can bring about what we call negative corporate image. Now, so these people are paid to take charge. So when a corporate tragedy occurs, people want to be reassured. Like for example, in case of fire, you want to be reassured that your property will be fine. Remember, some people when they are working, they leave their equipment there. Kuna kampuni zingine unapata ya kwamba, because I work with XYZ company, I leave my laptop there, I leave my bag there. Some ladies even carry their shoes in the office. You find that they have a lot of pairs of shoes. Today he's wearing black pair of shoes, next time it's yellow, next time it's red, next time it's blue, and so on and so forth. So they want to be reassured about three things. When you are employed by an employer, you need to be reassured, or you want to be reassured with three things. Number one, that the company have everything in place to protect tragedy from occurring. Everybody wants to work in an organization that reassures them that everything is in place. There is nothing that can do or that can harm you. Number two, that in spite of such preventative measures, in spite of coming up with those measures to protect fires, and to make sure that there is job security, the organization had the foresight to anticipate possibility of something going wrong. For example, the organization can anticipate, it can see beforehand that something is going to go wrong, and therefore it has solution at its disposal. And number three, people want to be reassured that the organization cared about what happened. Like in case of fire, you want to be reassured that my organization cares about me. There was fire in my office, but it cares about me. Maybe it called you, maybe you are out of the office when fire broke out in your, in your organization, or when when a strike occurred, or when there was a crisis, another crisis, another type of crisis, and then you received a call from maybe from your HR office asking, "Hey Juliet, are you okay?" And then you answer, "Yes, I'm okay. In fact, I was on leave. I was not there." Some such things. So people want to be reassured of those three things. Excuse me. So employees need to be reassured of such things. And when you are assured of such things, you feel happy. Then you are told, point number 3, that the organization, that the organization cared cared about what happened. So then you are told that there is what we call preparation, and there is what we call preparation. In case of a crisis, what preparation is put there. So people need to be prepared. People need to be prepared about something in case of a crisis. For example, you need to conduct what we call a crisis audit or a risk audit. That you need to identify areas. You need to identify areas where the company is most vulnerable. Vulnerable means it is weak. You need to identify areas where the company is most weak. Remember, we said that companies are personalized. Company is known as a person. And as a person, you know very well you are not 100% perfect. And because of that, then it means that an organization, we cannot find an organization that is 100% perfect. And therefore, we need to conduct a risk audit to identify areas in which a company is most vulnerable. Number 2, you are told preparation includes or entails identifying audiences who could demand information in a crisis situation and how they would they be communicated to. So in other words, in case of a crisis, I told you there are people who will get there. Number 1, it will be the community. It will be the community. These are the publics of public relations. The community is one of the publics of public relations. They will demand for information. Number 2, the stakeholders and the shareholders and the proprietors, they will demand for information for those people who are on the ground. What happened? The government will demand for information. The media will be there back to back with you, demanding for information. What has gone wrong? So identify these audiences who could demand information in a crisis situation, and how do you communicate to them? Like, for example, if it is the media people, some people don't like talking to the media. You just do what? You just sideline them. You just push them away. You just lock the gate. You don't want to talk to them. That is very wrong. It's very, very wrong. Because if you push the media towards, you push the media or you sideline them, you push them outside the gate. What they do is that they will interview some people outside there and they will get information. And whatever information they get, whether true or not, they will try to streamline it and then they will publish it. So the best people that you should not even mistreat are the media people. In case of a crisis, welcome them. Take them to a room. Tell them exactly what happened. Because if you don't tell them, there will always be some Tom, Dick, and Harry outside there who will give them information that is not true about the organization, and it will tarnish the image of the organization that you have tried to build as a PR practitioner for more than 10 years, for more than 20 years, or for more than 100 years. The stakeholders will demand for information. How will you communicate to them? The way you communicate to the stakeholders is not the way you will communicate to the journalists or the media. The way you communicate to the employees who will demand for information, because employees are also publics of public relations, is not the way you will communicate to, like the way you communicate to your stakeholders, and so on and so forth. So you need to identify audiences who would demand for information in a crisis situation and how they will be communicated with. Number 4, you are told that in preparation entails number 3, identifying and training spokespeople. Identify and train spokespeople. Sometimes many organizations don't do this. A PR practitioner, you need to do what? To identify. Remember tumesema ya kwamba a PR practitioner cannot do everything by himself. So you need to pick people who are going to be in charge of various situations. Like for example, Michelle Atamba, we look at the employees in terms of how they are paid. These are the one we look at a situation of in case of fire. So ensure that this organization is safe in case there is a fire outbreak. Another one we look at a situation of, say for example, good working environment or good relationship with all those things. So therefore, we need to identify spokespeople. In case of a crisis, say for example, there was a fire outbreak, or maybe there is a strike. Usikubali employee yoyote ati media ikikuja ati employee anaulizwa maswali ovyo ovyo. Train your people, train your employees that in case of a crisis, direct them to this office. Don't talk to the media, because you might be asked a question and you respond negatively, and then it will tarnish the image of the organization. So train people who will handle the media. Train people who will handle the stakeholders. Train people who will handle the community. Train people who will handle, maybe for example, the opinion leaders. Opinion leaders are people like politicians. Opinion leaders are people like the church, the pastors, the pastor, the church leaders. Opinion leaders are people when they make a comment about a situation, it has got a very, very powerful impact. Like if an opinion leader, a politician, says something negative about a certain company, my friend, the following day, everybody will be withdrawing from such a company. So these are people that should be treated with utmost care. Then lastly, you are told to test everything. Test everything. Like I remember one day when I was working in a certain organization, we were trained on how to behave in case of fire. In case of fire, how do we behave? We were trained in a room, and then after being trained, we were taken outside and we were told, now assume there is fire. Now we started acting very fast. That is now testing everything. We tested even the equipment. Are the fire extinguishers working? Is the what? The sand good? Is this pipe, the hose pipe, this one for putting off the fire, the one that the fire brigade and they use, is it working? So test everything. Is it working? Because fire does not knock the door when it is doing what? When it's about to consume your office. It does not. Strike do not knock your doors. But sometimes tunakuanga na kitu inaitwa propaganda, information that is not true, fununu tu. na hiyo fununu saa zingine inakuwa ni kweli. So that is it. So we have talked about conducting a risk audit. We've talked about identifying audiences. We have talked about identifying training spokesperson, and we've talked about testing everything. And then there is what we call crisis management teams. You need to have a team of crisis management. In case of a crisis, you need people like a managing director. You need people like public relations manager to be in your team. You need people like works manager or technical officers. You need people like safety officers. In case of a crisis, these people will be going from maybe fourth floor, helping people, saving lives, and so on and so forth. And we can also have another crisis, like say, for example, issue to do with what we call Al-Shabaab attack or militia group attack. How are you going to act on that? Another crisis is, you just saw the other day, COVID-19 is another crisis that came without knocking. And many organizations are still crawling. They have not gotten to their point where they were in the year 2016, 2017, 2018. Bado zinang'ang'ana kufika mahali zimefika. That's a crisis. People are laid off because of such a crisis. So in other words, the success of an organization dealing with a crisis builds the reputation of that organization. If an organization cannot deal with a crisis, then the reputation of that organization becomes negative. So the success of a positive, what we call a positive corporate image also, or we can put it like this: if an organization can fight a crisis, or can manage a crisis, or can be able to deal with a crisis successfully, then it builds a very positive image on itself or about itself. So that is it. That is it. That is it. Unless there is a question, maybe we can look at the likely crisis and unlikely crisis. Likely crises are those crises that we know that it can happen anytime. Like, for example, when you talk about likely crisis, if you work in a petrol station, there is a likelihood that we can have a fire outbreak due to the petrol. You know, petrol is very what? Tunasema namna gani? Inaweza kushika moto haraka sana.
Highly flammable.
Yeah, it's highly flammable. Petrol is highly flammable. So there is a likely that fire might come from there. Also, when you talk about something like a sheep, not mbuzi, but sheep, ambazo zinakwanga kwa maji, meli, yeah? When you talk about things like meli, yeah? There is a likelihood that it might sink. So those are likely crises. Then we have unlikely crisis. Unlikely crisis, this one you don't know whether it is very unlikely that it will happen. For example, things to do with unlikely are those things that, for example, I'm thinking of an example. For example, COVID-19 was unlikely. That is an unlikely crisis. People never even thought that such a thing can happen. That is unlikely crisis. It just happened. Like I heard there is another one called monkeypox. That's another unlikely crisis. Sijui kama imefika Kenya, but tunaisikia tu kwa mtandao. Hivyo ndivyo COVID ilianza. Before you notice, it is your friend who has it. Before you notice, Mmeshika ofisi nzima, and that is it. So unless there is a question, I'll stop at that point. And kindly, whenever I'm in class, and you know I'm in class, like for example, it is 12:03, don't call me. I will not pick your call. There is no way I can solve your issues and I'm in class. Like right now, I'm talking to you. I'm taking you through crisis management. And then you are busy calling me. I will not be in a position to help you. It will mean that I stop teaching, I help you. So whenever you're in a crisis, like I know there are those people who are in a crisis, they were not able to join the class. You are trying to call me, but I will not pick, because picking means that I stop my class and I start dealing with your issues. That one can never happen. It is either I solve your issue and so on and so forth. So kama hakuna swali, mimi nitaachia hapo, but before I finish, there is something that I want to tell you. Before I finish, number one is that I have done this topic 3. You know, you have realized that you have joined topic 3 and 4. You have joined topic 3 and 4. So therefore, no, topic 2 and 3. Therefore, that means that topic 3, I will put a recording. I'll put a recording on topic 3 and a video recording that was done previously. So you will listen to that particular recording. And also I've put some notes for you as far as topic 3 is concerned. As far as topic 3 is concerned, there is a video recording for you there. And then let me just go what we call systematically. Number one, we have topic 2 notes. I've unleashed those topics. Remember, today we are covering topic 2. Number 3, there is what we call topic 3 notes. Topic 3 notes you're going to read on yourself. And then, as far as topic 3 notes are concerned, I've attached a recording on topic 3. I've attached a recording on topic 3. So you will listen to that recording. If you go through your whatever, your portal, you will see that that recording is visible now. That recording is visible now. And then there is a discussion forum that is waiting for you. Then after the discussion forum, there is another thing called a quiz. There is a quiz waiting for you there that you need to submit by the time we get to 2, before 2 p.m. today. And then lastly, we have assignment 1. That assignment 1 opens exactly at 2. It will open exactly at 2. Why? Because some people might start doing assignment 1 now. So that assignment will open exactly at 2 and it will close next week at 5. It will close next week at 5. So you have at least 1 week to do that assignment and submit it. Any question? Any question? Who is giving wrong password? Now again, we formed a group, a WhatsApp group. We formed a WhatsApp group for PR group. Kindly, I'm going to share a link with you. I will share a link with you. And then from there, you're going to use that link to join that particular group, because I'll be using that group to do what? I'll be using that group to communicate some things. So I am looking for the group.
What is the password of the attendant?
My friend, I've not gotten there. Acha kukimbia mbele yangu. Why are you rushing before time? Huko sijafika. I'm looking for this group. I don't know where it is. PR. I've gotten it. Let me confirm. Yeah, I think it is this one. It has got 61 participants. Do we have somebody by the name Kate? Kate nearly create a group. Kate, are you here? Kate? Do you have someone by the name Kate? Kate, you have to respond before I put others in the wrong group.
Yes.
Thank you, Kate. So I am going to share the link here. So nina share your link, muingie kwa hiyo group. I've shared the link, you can see it. The link is there. Let us first join the group, then I'll give the link, no, the password for the attendance.